There is a grief we do not have a funeral for, a silent, private ache for a life you never lived. The career you almost chose, the love you let slip away, the person you might have become, if only you had turned left instead of right at that one crucial crossroads. This is not regret. Regret is for a mistake you made. This is a deeper sorrow, a grief for a possibility that died. And these unlived lives, they do not simply vanish. They become ghosts. Ghosts that haunt the quiet corridors of your soul, whispering the most painful question of all: what if? What if I told you that this grief is not a sign that you chose wrong? What if it is a profound signal from the wisest part of you? The great psychologist Carl Jung taught that these phantom lives are essential parts of our psyche. They are the potentials we had to sacrifice to become who we are today, and they are exiled into the shadow. But they do not go there to die. They go there carrying the very gifts we had to leave behind: our creativity, our freedom, our courage. Today we will learn to stop running from these ghosts. We will turn to face them, not with regret, but with reverence. We will explore why grieving what never was is a vital step toward wholeness. We will learn how to identify the hidden strengths these unlived selves hold. And I will guide you through a gentle shadow work practice to begin integrating their wisdom into the one precious life you are living right now. This is not about mourning what you lost. It is about reclaiming what was never truly gone. To begin this sacred remembrance, I invite you to make a quiet acknowledgement. Write in the comments below: I honor all my possibilities. This silent ache for the life not lived, it is one of the most misunderstood landscapes of the human heart. Our culture is obsessed with moving forward, with gratitude, with positive thinking. We are taught that to look back on a path not taken with sadness is a sign of weakness, a sign of ingratitude for the life we do have. And so we learn to suppress this strange grief. We label it regret and try to banish it, but it does not leave. It simply goes underground, becoming a quiet, persistent drain on our vitality, a subtle feeling that something essential is missing. But what if this grief is not a problem to be solved? What if it is a process to be honored? The truth that Carl Jung understood so well is that every life is a series of choices, and every choice, no matter how wonderful, is also a renunciation. To choose to be a mother is to renounce the life of the woman with no children. To choose a stable career in one city is to renounce the life of the world traveler. To commit to one person is to renounce all the other loves that might have been. Life is a sculptor. To create one form, it must chip away at all other possibilities. The life you are living is the finished statue. But the unlived lives are the ghosts of all the marble that was carved away. And to grieve for that lost marble is not a sign of ingratitude for the statue. It is a sign of your deep appreciation for the full potential of the stone. Let's meet Elaine. She is 53, a highly respected corporate lawyer. She has a beautiful apartment in the city, a successful career, and a life many would envy. She's proud of what she has built, but there is a strange trigger in her life: mountains. Whenever she sees a picture of a rugged, snow-capped mountain range or drives past a distant peak on the highway, she feels an almost physical ache in her chest. A profound, inexplicable sadness washes over her. For years, she couldn't understand it. She would tell herself, "This is ridiculous. I have a good life. I should be grateful." But the ache would remain. This ache is the paradox of grief for what never was.
It is the phantom limb of our potential. Through her own inner work, her own form of shadow work, Elaine came to understand. The ache was not for a different life. It was for a different part of herself. In her early 20s, Elaine was a passionate mountaineer. She was adventurous, courageous, a woman who felt most alive when she was pushing her physical limits in the raw beauty of nature. Then came the crossroads, law school, a demanding career, the path of stability and intellectual achievement. To say yes to the lawyer, she had to say no to the mountaineer. She had to exile that adventurous, wild part of herself into the shadow because it did not fit into the neat, responsible container of her new life. The sadness she feels when she sees mountains is not her regretting her career. It is the ghost of the mountaineer within her, whispering from the shadow. It is the grief of her soul for a part of itself that has been left dormant for decades. She is not mourning a past mistake. She is mourning the loss of a possible future. And here is the crucial insight from Carl Jung's work. This grief is not just a painful emotion to be endured. It is a messenger. It is a compass pointing directly to the exiled territory of your own soul. The unlived life that haunts you contains a vital quality, a disowned energy that your current life desperately needs in order to be whole. Elaine the lawyer is successful, but she feels brittle, stifled, cut off from her own vitality. The ghost of Elaine the mountaineer holds the very medicine she needs. She holds the courage, the resilience, the connection to her own physical body, the ability to breathe in wild, open spaces. The ache in her chest is not a sign that she should have been a mountaineer instead of a lawyer. It is a sacred invitation from her own shadow, an invitation to stop exiling the mountaineer and to start integrating her, an invitation to find ways to bring that dormant courage and love of nature into the life she is actually living. This is the profound shift in perspective that shadow work offers. It asks us to stop looking at our unlived lives as a catalog of our failures, and to start seeing them as a library of our forgotten strengths. The ghosts are not here to haunt you. They are here to guide you. They are the keepers of the missing pieces of your own soul, waiting patiently in the shadows for you to finally come home and reclaim them.
To embrace the unlived life, we must first understand why we exiled it. The psyche, as Carl Jung taught, is a complex ecosystem that strives for balance and survival. Often, we don't choose one path over another because one is better. We choose it because, at that time, it felt safer, or more acceptable, or simply more possible. Every unlived life is a story of a sacrifice, and every sacrifice leaves a ghost. The core of this particular kind of shadow work is to identify the ghost and then to unwrap the gift that it has been holding for you all these years. Let's look at some of the most common ghosts that haunt us and the hidden gold they carry. Perhaps the most common ghost is that of the artist. This is the painter, the writer, the musician, the dancer you never became. So many of us are born with a deep creative impulse, but we are often raised in a world that values practicality over passion. We are told, you can't make a living from that. That's a nice hobby, but what's your real job? So, we make the sensible choice. We go to business school, or nursing school, or law school, and we exile the artist to the shadow. But the artist does not die. It haunts us. It appears in the quiet ache we feel in a museum, in the pang of envy we feel when a friend publishes a book. The lead of this ghost is the feeling of being uninspired, of living a life in grayscale. But the gold it carries is immense. The artist holds your connection to beauty, your capacity for self-expression, your intuition, your ability to play. The grief you feel is a sign that your soul is starving for these qualities. Another powerful ghost is that of the traveler, the one who dreamed of backpacking through Asia, of living in Paris, of seeing the world. But life happened. A mortgage, a promotion, the needs of a family. And the traveler was packed away in a dusty suitcase in the attic of the soul. This ghost often appears as a deep restlessness, a feeling of being trapped, a constant scrolling through other people's travel photos with a sigh. The lead is a feeling of being small, of a life lived within narrow confines. But the gold that the traveler holds is your sense of adventure, your curiosity, your courage, your ability to adapt to the unknown and to feel at home in the world. The restlessness you feel is simply your exiled courage, pacing back and forth in its cage. And then there is a more subtle but equally potent ghost, the scholar. This is the part of you that longed to stay in academia, the historian, the philosopher, the scientist who wanted to dedicate a life to the pursuit of knowledge for its own sake. But the pressures of the world demanded a more lucrative or direct path. The scholar was exiled in favor of a more practical application of intelligence. This ghost haunts us as a feeling of intellectual hunger, a sense that we are not using our minds to their fullest capacity, a quiet frustration with the superficiality of our daily conversations. The lead is a feeling of being bored, understimulated. But the gold the scholar carries is your deep love of learning, your analytical mind, your capacity for objective thought, your patience for complexity. The frustration you feel is your own brilliant mind begging for a worthy problem to solve. The artist, the traveler, the scholar. These are just a few examples. Your ghost might be the activist, the homemaker, the entrepreneur. The work is the same. To name the ghost is to give it form. To identify the gold it carries is to give it purpose. This process is a central part of what Carl Jung called individuation. Individuation is the journey of becoming a whole, undivided individual. And you cannot be whole if you have left significant parts of your own potential locked away in the shadow. The grief you feel for the unlived life is not a distraction from your individuation journey. The grief is the path. It is the call from the deep telling you which parts of yourself are needed to complete the masterpiece. For Elaine, our lawyer, the ache for the mountains was a call to integrate the courage and vitality of the mountaineer. For a woman who chose a high-powered career, the ghost of the stay-at-home mother might be calling her to integrate the qualities of nurturing and presence into her life. For a man who became a responsible father, the ghost of the rebel he was in his youth might be calling him to reclaim a spark of spontaneity and freedom. The beauty of this shadow work is that it is not about regret. It is about reclamation. It is not about wishing you had a different life. It is about making the life you have richer, deeper, and more whole by welcoming home the lost and forgotten pieces of your own magnificent soul.
To know that your unlived lives hold your forgotten strengths is a powerful shift in perspective. But how do we move from knowing to integrating? How do we bring the gold from the shadowlands into the daylight of our current life? We do this not by wishing for the past, but by enriching the present. This is not about making grand, life-altering changes. You don't need to quit your job to become a painter. You don't need to leave your family to become a traveler. The process is far more gentle, more sustainable, more profound. It is the art of integration through microdosing. It is about feeding the ghost of your unlived self just enough of its essential nourishment that it stops haunting you and starts informing you. Here I want to guide you through a simple yet sacred practice, a ritual to begin this integration. We will call it the ceremony of acknowledgement. This is a core practice in the journey of shadow work. First, you must create a sacred space for this meeting. Take out a journal and a pen. Find a quiet moment. Take a few deep breaths and arrive fully in the present moment. The first step of the ceremony is to name the ghost. You must be specific. Do not just write "the artist." Give this unlived self a name and a story. For example, Juliet, the painter who lives in a small, sunlit studio in Provence. Or Liam, the scholar who spends his days in the quiet halls of an old university library. By giving the ghost a name, you are acknowledging it as a real and valid part of your psychic reality. You are giving it dignity. The second and most important step is to identify the gold. Beneath the name and the story, I want you to ask a deep question. What are the core qualities, the essential energies that this unlived self embodies? What is the medicine it holds? List at least 3 to 5 of these qualities. For Juliet, the painter, the gold might be creativity, sensuality, connection to beauty, freedom from a schedule, playfulness. For Liam, the scholar, the gold might be deep focus, curiosity, love of truth, intellectual rigor, quiet contemplation. This is the most crucial part of the process. You are extracting the essence of the unlived life, separate from the specific circumstances. And now, the final step, the act of integration. Bring one piece of gold home. Look at your list of golden qualities and ask yourself this gentle question. What is one very small, low-risk action I can take this week to bring just a tiny taste of one of these qualities into my actual life? This is the art of the microdose. Elaine, our lawyer haunted by the mountaineer, does not need to book a flight to the Himalayas. To honor the mountaineer's gold of courage and connection to nature, her microaction might be to simply go for a hike in a local park on Saturday morning. A man whose ghost is Liam the scholar doesn't need to enroll in a PhD program. His microaction might be to dedicate one evening a week to turn off the television and read a history book he's been curious about. A woman whose ghost is Juliet the painter doesn't need to buy an easel. Her microaction might be to spend 15 minutes visiting an art gallery on her lunch break, simply to feed her soul with beauty. Do you see the power in this? You are not trying to live a different life. You are inviting the energy of that unlived life into the life you have. You are telling the ghost, I see you. I value your gifts. You do not have to haunt me anymore. You are welcome here. There is a small space for you at my table. Each time you take one of these small conscious actions, you are performing an act of psychic integration. You are weaving the silvery, ghostly threads of your unlived potentials into the golden tapestry of your actual life. This does not erase the grief. There will always be a quiet poignancy for the paths not taken, but it transforms the grief. It changes it from a painful ache of lack into a rich, complex harmony of wholeness. The ghosts stop being your jailers and become your muses. Your regrets stop being a source of shame and become a source of inspiration. This is the profound embrace that Carl Jung's work offers. It is the understanding that you are not just the statue that was sculpted. You are also all the beautiful, ghostly marble that was carved away. And to be truly whole is to learn how to honor both. It is to build a life that is not just a monument to your choices, but also a sanctuary for all of your magnificent, unlived possibilities.
Today, we have walked together into the misty landscape of memory and potential. We have sat with the ghosts of the lives we did not live, and we have learned not to fear them. We began by validating the silent ache for what never was, recognizing it not as regret, but as a profound and necessary form of grief. Through the story of Elaine, we saw how these unlived selves are not failures, but exiled parts of our own soul, crying out for acknowledgement. Then we journeyed into the heart of Carl Jung's psychology to understand the nature of these ghosts. We learned that the artist, the traveler, the scholar, these are not just fantasies. They are shadow aspects of our psyche, carrying the very qualities and energies we had to sacrifice in order to become who we are. We discovered that the grief we feel is a compass pointing us toward the forgotten gold of our own potential. And finally, we transformed this insight into a sacred practice. Through the ceremony of acknowledgement, we learned a gentle, powerful method of shadow work, not to erase the past, but to integrate it. We learned to name the ghost, to identify the gold it carries, and to bring that gold home into our present life through small, conscious micro-actions. The path to wholeness is not about having it all. It is about honoring it all. It is the radical acceptance that you are a vast and complex tapestry, woven not just with the golden threads of the life you have lived, but also with the silvery, shimmering threads of the lives that exist only in your soul. Your richness lies in your complexity. Your beauty lies in your completeness. As you continue this practice of integration, you may notice something powerful beginning to shift. The energy that was once trapped in the sorrow of what if is now liberated. It becomes fuel. Fuel for new passions, new curiosities, new expressions of your being. The ghost of the artist, once acknowledged, might not lead you to a gallery in Paris, but it might inspire you to pick up a paintbrush for the first time in 30 years. And in that act, a wellspring of creativity you thought was long dead might begin to flow again. But what happens when that wellspring feels blocked? What if you do the work, you honor the ghost of your inner artist, but when you stand before the blank canvas, there is nothing? Often, the very same unresolved shadow patterns that create the grief for an unlived life can also create stubborn, invisible barriers to our creative flow in the present. The fear of not being good enough, the inner critic, the unprocessed pain. How exactly does our unresolved shadow sabotage our most creative impulses? And what can we learn from Carl Jung about dissolving these hidden blocks to unleash our true, authentic voice? That is the deep, creative, and liberating work we will do together in our next conversation, as we explore why your unresolved shadow blocks creativity. For now, your invitation is a simple act of reclamation. It is a promise to one of the lost parts of yourself. To make this real, to give one of your ghosts a voice, I invite you to share with this community in the comments below. Complete this sentence. The unlived self I am ready to honor is the blank. Is it the musician, the scientist, the homemaker, the activist? By naming it, you are opening the door. You are telling the ghost that it is no longer an exile. It is a welcome guest. And you are taking the first step toward becoming the magnificent, multifaceted, and whole person you were always meant to be.